Hi, everybody. Going through some of your designs, one of the things I thought about is like how in the classroom we would have some time to have me physically draw on the designs and kind of like you would take them back and update them. And I was thinking, well, we can't really do that. What's something that we could do? And so what I think I'm going to introduce to you is an opportunity to use the sketchbook app to correct a design. So I have a design here that I've selected from last quarter, and I'm going to show you how you could go about correcting a design like this in the Sketchbook app. Okay, so I'm going to do just a couple different things here. I'm going to turn on the annotation so that I can draw on the screen for you. And hopefully this will help you kind of like identify some of the tools and locations. Now, of course, this is again going to look different on the Windows, and this is actually the desktop version for the Mac. And I know for a fact it looks a bit different than on the application on the iPad. So the tools have the same like icons, they're just in different locations, and you can always use the web as a place to find information and resources for locations of tools. So I'm going to come and start the video and make sure that we have a chance to go at a good pace. I'm just gonna basically, I kept the video at the length of speed that I recorded at, so you can see it's 26 minutes, and you can fast forward and go back through different parts that you want to. Okay, so first, let's just look at like basic layout of the screen. Okay, so again, like I sort of said the other day on the video, we have our menu at the top here, the main toolbar. You first see me use this tool, which is the magnifying lens. And you can also access this tool simply by, if you're on a desktop, like a laptop, you can also access this tool by just hitting spacebar, and it should come up. So that's a great tool to be able to use. So that's the first tool you're going to see me use in the video. Now I'm going to basically just zoom out here, and then after zooming out so I can see the whole page, I'm going to close that down, and then I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to adjust, rotate image. It doesn't matter which way I need. I just need the image to be in portrait mode. So then I'm just going to move this over. And one of the things too I wanted to state was that like in the app on my iPad, I have a hard time with the canvas spinning by accident when I pinch. And so you can actually go up into your preferences at the top of the screen in the iPad or on the tablet and choose rotate off. And then after you've turned the rotation off, shut the program down and then turn it back on, and that will save that option so that you don't accidentally rotate the canvas. So I've got the canvas now in portrait mode, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to again use, like we did, I believe that we looked at this the other day, but just in case not, we're going to use the add an image option here. And so then we're going to add an image, and just by doing that, automatically it's going to make a new layer. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to add that image, which will be the design, the student's design. So I picked this design on purpose, and we'll talk about it in a second as to why I did that. I just want to show you first here. I'm going to just fill the canvas with the design. And now once it's in that place, I'm going to crop the canvas down. So you're going to see again at the top here, I'm choosing the crop tool selection. And then I'm going to put the cursor at the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to drag the cursor down. You'll see me do that in a second. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to hit return, and it's going to crop. Now, if you're on the application, the only way to do this on the application is to instead use the selection tool here. And then you can select your area, and then I believe you can then use the arrow tool, and that will take you into a different screen. And I believe the crop is in there. And if it's not in there, then I believe that there is an option in the top toolbar. It just might look a little bit different. Reach out to me if you can't find it. So I'm going to go ahead and crop. So you're going to see me make my selection, and then I'm just going to hit enter after I've made my selection. Okay, and then that's going to allow me then to just work on just the image. I just find that cleaner and easier to use. And when you submit the work, that's what I would like you to submit. Now I'm going to now move the orientation of the layers. I want this layer to be underneath the new layer. So you can see there's layer 1 and layer 2. And it's only going to let me do that by moving layer 1 over layer 2. I don't know why it did it that time, but it just did. Now, of course, I want 2 different layers because I'm do different things on in terms of adjustments. And when I draw, I want to be on a different layer. But first, I'm going to adjust the image. I'm going to remove all saturation. So that means it's going to have no color. And then I can manipulate the lightness. And so you can see here, I just increased the lightness, but so that it's not yet fully black and white. I don't want it to be fully black and white yet, but I do want there to be a little bit more lightness. So then the second thing I just did then was I went ahead and I just made the entire space grayscale by going up to edit, adjust image, grayscale. So I'm going to use the magnifying tool. I'm going to zoom in, and you can see that the student made a pretty nice design, but we've got some problems that are here. So the very first thing that we're going to look at is just kind of like using different tools. Okay, the eyedropper tool will let me select the color of the canvas right now. Notice it's not pure white yet. I don't want to blast away a lot of information that I might need. And so I'm going to keep things pretty much just the way that they are right now, where the background isn't quite white yet. I want to pay attention to that. Now, I kind of jump ahead here a little bit, but I'm going to go back to this in a little bit with a much longer sort of process for you in this video. But I've actually also going to be working on the planes design first, because the student left some lines where we could remove the lines to only have white planes, and so that we're going to work on that. However, if we look, one of the things that I'm going to do now, which is much better, is I'm going to use that fill tool. Now make sure when you fill, so this is the fill tool, okay? Make sure that when you fill that here's the fill bucket, okay? Now this, sometimes when you fill, you need to bring this down to like 1, so it only fills one color. Right now it's gonna fill 102 sort of pixels within range of the same sort of color. So if I, fill here, that means that it's going to find 102 pixels that are within that range and fill them. So sometimes this is too high and you want to lower that number there down so that it's a much lower number, so it fills in much less pixels. Make sure that you're on the right layer now. Okay, I want to be on this layer because I'm going to fill that layer. So that is the process of what's happening at this moment. So I'm going to go in and see I can fill that, and now I've adjusted all these other all the other background colors. So that's really kind of helped to clean things up. You will see though that inside the bottom fish, I'm going to need to go through and fill that. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to fill that, okay? And when I accidentally fill in stuff I need, I just hit Command Z, which is undo, or if you don't have a Mac, the undo button is here and the redo button is here. Okay, so that would be undo here, and the green one would be redo. Okay. So I'm going through and I'm going to fill in now all of the areas that I want to have as the background value. And sometimes you'll see I'll try and it doesn't go, so I skip it because I'm just basically filling in everything that I can right now. So when it fills in by accident to another area, then I skip that. One of the things that you can do, you can see inside this section here, like when I look at it, and I pause the video, do you see inside here that there's multiple values? So if I have my paint bucket number too low or too high, it's not going to get all those different values. And so I want to make sure that I have the tolerance of the paint bucket. Again, this is the paint bucket. I want to make sure that I have the tolerance of the paint bucket set at such a number that it's going to take this whole area and make it the color that I need it to be. So you just see me go through, see me here lowering the tolerance down. And now I'm able to get more of that color without accidentally also selecting the black. What's happening is if it's too high, it's selecting the black, which is also the same color as the outline, and that's going to fill in. So you just see me go through. I spend some time going through here. And when the paint bucket doesn't allow me to really get into something, I'm going to use the pen tool to really go up and draw the value that we need right up to the lines that we want to keep. And I'll be going through and kind of just doing this for a little bit. This is a great time too, like right here, to correct lines. Like look at that line. There was a little bit of an overdrawing there of that line. I wanted to get rid of it. I'm actually working, when I'm doing all this drawing, I'm actually on a different layer. This will be helpful so that if you do something that you don't like, you're not accidentally drawing on your actual layer, okay? So you're just gonna see me go through here and I'm going to fill in and correct little areas. So you can see like here, I'm going through and I'm filling in those areas and then I'm taking the pen tool and I'm cleaning up the lines. A lot of what we do in this class is about cleanliness and quality. And the reason I don't usually do this is because I want my students to learn how to make really good quality handmade products. But I also want to recognize that we're online, we're learning online, and let's use the tools we have at our disposal. So you see, I'm just going to go through and clean up that background value. So what just happened there was that like I was on the wrong layer. And so if there are no lines, it doesn't create a boundary. And so when you select that area, the paint bucket is going to fill in everything. If you keep going through and you keep working with the paint bucket and it keeps like filling in everything, make sure that like if you're filling in a line drawing, make sure that all your lines are actually connected, because sometimes there will be like an intersection where the lines aren't connected and the paint bucket just like swoops through that area. So you need to make sure that that's, all your lines are connected to create strong contours and boundaries. So you'll see now I'm just again using that pen to clean up and really get into creating some nice clean edges here on the lines. Okay. And if you're using a paintbrush or a pen tool that's not giving you clean lines, you can always go into the selection for like the nib and the size of the tool. That's going to be here. And when you click that, it will open up, you saw earlier, it will open up the edit for the tool that you can change the size and the hardness of the tool in that area. On the application, like on the iPad, there's actually just two sliders like here on this, and you can slide those up and down. The bottom one is opacity and the top one is size. So you can see I'm just going through here and I'm still just cleaning things up with that fill tool. Now, there you can see me adjusting the size of the pen, okay? And I'm gonna pull that down in size so I can get down inside that tight little corner like that. So anywhere where you see stuff that you'd like to correct, like when I pause this, I can just in this area, I can see like this line here is bumpy, I would correct that. This line here is bumpy, I would correct that. Okay. And so like even up in here, I'd make sure that I draw up in there with the background value. So use this as a time to really correct issues that you see in the design. So I'm gonna go through, I'm just gonna clean all that up and make sure it's nice and strong. Now this part is the part that some of you really need to examine, which is we talked about the idea that when you come to the white planes, that when you have a outline around the white planes like here, that line is now a plane. It's no longer, it's not an outline the way you think it is. It's become a plane. And so if this is white, we want to just let closure work in there. Now, somewhere over here, we might find that we can't do that. If we remove that information, then, it falls apart. So instead, we can increase the size of the plane, which you're going to see me do. But the question with closure and here with the planes is like, how do I get rid of information and still have enough information for people to kind of really see what I've made? So you're gonna see me go through. I'm gonna start to remove some of these extra lines that I don't think need to be there. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in so that you can see and I can see. And I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna start to remove information. Now I'm going to choose to do that with the paintbrush instead of the pen. And one of the things that you're seeing here when I move the paintbrush is I have a certain sort of softness and shape selected from my paintbrush. So I'm actually going to change that so that it's smoother and softer. And then as I scroll down, you can see here it says shape. I can change my shape. Now, if you play around with this and you end up with a bunch of things you don't like, just go to the bottom there and hit reset, and it'll reset to the actual like factory settings. So play around, just try out different brushes, see what they feel like. Once you've got your brush selected, then you can start to use it. So what you're going to see me do here also is I'm going to be correcting some of this design and sort of like enhancing it in terms of like removing lines and cleaning up edges. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to remove all that line over there because we don't need it. If that's a white plane against a white background, we have to find the right balance to remove that line and let closure do its job. So you're going to see me do that. I'm going to remove all that. And then you can see I try this out. Say, what happens if I remove that? Ah, it's too much. I need to keep that. How do I leave that and leave it functional is the question. So then you'll see that I'm going to go through and I'm going to remove other lines. And then also what I'm going to do is correct. So one of the things you can see too here is that on the student's work, we can see the indentation of planes that they accidentally drew over. So we're actually going to bring those planes back to life. And we can also see the edges here of the indentation where they embossed with a ballpoint pen or something when they did a transfer. We can see that there's elements there that they intended to keep and they didn't. So we're going to clean that up. So I'm going to go through and you'll see I literally create new areas in here. And it works really well to do like this for small shapes. But then you'll see like over here, I create a larger shape and then I go in with that fill bucket, boop, boop. And I just fill that in, boop. And then I'm going to go through and clean it up with the pen. So I kind of went through and I cleaned up all those edges for this design, created new edges, but you can see also one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to those original planes that they identified that for whatever reason they shaded in, and we're going to basically fill them in as that background value as if they were white planes. So we're going to go through, I'm going to trace that contour that they created by accident. Okay, I'm going to go up to the fill bucket and fill that in, boop, boop. Okay, so we're going to end up actually creating more white planes, and then we're also cleaning things up. Now, at the end of working on this part of the design, one of my biggest questions is like, have I now removed enough information to make it functional? Have I removed too much information? I still think it's working quite well. Okay, so now I'm going to go up and I want to show you the last little bit, which is their points. Now the points were actually really good, but we can zoom in there now and we can clean up their points a little bit, and that's what we're going to do. So the different ways to add points, one of the ways to add points would be with like the pen tool, and another way is going to be with copy and paste. So what I'm going to do first is use the pen tool. And I'm going to go through, like when we have clumps of points, those are no longer points. They're now, points in proximity or similarity. And so they become a different form. So we want to make them points. I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean those up. One of the things that you'll see here about the students' points is that they're not really points. They're more like marks. And so when I start to use the brush tool, you'll notice that I'm leaving like little circles, which are actual points. And it's not working because the circles are much too clean compared to the points that they made. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of try to make larger points that are just a hair less circular. Doesn't quite work out in my favor. Okay, it now looks too different from the student's work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, I'm going to select layer 2, which is the layer with the original drawing, and I'm actually going to select one of their points. And to do that, I'm going to use the marquee tool, which is here, and I'm going to use freehand, which is here. So I'm going to use those to isolate a point, and then you'll see after I isolate that point, I then copy it and paste it. So go to the top, I hit copy and edit, or Command C on a Mac, and then I go to that layer, okay, and then on that layer, I will paste it. Okay, and so there it shows up there. Okay, so now I can move it around and put it into a location that I need. Why is this preferable? Only in the sense that like the students' marks don't look like points, and if I use too many points, it's gonna, those will look really circular where these do not. Okay, now you could also start to add points in places, like maybe there needs to be a point there. I definitely think, and you're gonna see, I'm gonna clean that up. But you can go in now and start to add points. And so on some of your designs, I'm going to tell you to add more points. And you can either do it by hand or you could do it digitally like this. So you see, I'm going to go through, cut and copy and paste points and kind of play around with where they could go. Okay, that's not a very difficult thing to do. And then you'll also see me over here, do it again using the marquee tool. I select an area and I drag that down over there. Now, for some reason, it created a much bigger area. And so that didn't work for me. So I then ended up just basically deleting that um, mark that I copied, because no matter kind of what I did, it just didn't work out. So I ended up deleting it, and then I just tried again. You'll also see that I've left some points. And usually what I do is I really double, triple click to really make sure that the point is really heavy. If you're using a stylus, then make sure your pressure sensitivity is set in such a way that it's going to give you a nice clean mark even with hard pressure. So once I'm ready, I merge all of my layers. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back to that for a sec. So here it is. So you can see over here that I clicked on the layer and then this sort of circle came up. And then what you do is hold your button down and then you can drag to whatever option you want. And when you drag over the option, it illuminates what that option does. Okay. So on the like iPad or the application, then you can do this just by like tapping the layer with your finger, and then it will give you a menu option. So I'm going to merge all those layers together. Okay, and then after merging the layers, I think I decided to play around a little bit more with the points, erasing and adding. And then after I merged all the layers, now I can do my final contrast adjustment, okay? Again, the reason that you wanna wait is because, like, you don't wanna blast away things that you need, and, that's really important that we have, we don't want this to look like, an over contrasted, uh, design. So now I'm gonna adjust my contrast, and now the design looks better. Things that I think could still be worked on this design in particular, now that we've adjusted the contrast, we can see that some of these points are much darker. I would go in and work on those, either remove them or clean them up. And I still think this needs a bit of work right in there. But like here, like that looks too, how does it look comparative to other areas? And so I would go in and clean those up now. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a tutorial, okay? And so just to quickly remind you of the tools that we kind of used here, we use the magnifying glass quite a lot to zoom in and zoom out of our images. We use the crop tool to crop the image. When we clicked on this tool, we got the marquee that allowed us to free select an area in the dots to copy and paste. We use the edit menu option at the top of the screen, and um, we used undo, control C, control Z or on a Mac or command Z. Control V would be paste, control Z is undo, control C is copy. So there's a bunch of different sort of like little key, what do they call those, hotkeys that you can use. We use the paint bucket tool, okay? We worked in our layers. You want to add a layer, it's right here. When you go to add your image, it's right here. Over here, we use the pen and we use the paintbrush and we use this slider to adjust our sizes of our tools. Again, if you're on an application on an iPad or Surface, there's actually just two sliders here that you would use. And those two sliders, you slide up and down. The top one is for the size and the bottom one is for opacity. And so those are basically the tools that we utilized. Now, if you're a little color puck, this is the color puck. If the little color puck isn't out, you can go to the top of the screen and hit Window, select color puck, or you can select the color puck right here. So I hope that helps. I'm really excited to see how this works. So if you get a score on one of your designs and you want to adjust it, then this is how I would do it digitally. And I know this would have been helpful earlier, but I don't usually allow students to do this. And just going through your designs, I thought, challenging myself and saying, why not? Why won't you let students do this? And so, I'm going to bring that challenge to myself and say, it's time to get comfortable with this. And so let's see what happens. As always, reach out if you have questions, and I hope that this helps and that things are going pretty well with these new digital tools that you're using.